right, welcome back. It's Wednesday night at 7 p.m., and that means that it's time for Not My Circus. I'm Casey Whitener. I'm the Libertarian candidate for the U.S. Senate here in South Carolina, and we're going to do these Wednesday nights during the primaries as we talk a little bit about how the primaries are driving candidates to the fringes and forcing them into some sort of silly and kind of reckless behavior. That is not my circus, and those are not my monkeys. As the Libertarian candidate, I've already been put on the ballot. We had a convention back on April 11th, so now I just get to sort of sit and watch what's happening through the primary races. But I also wanted to reach out specifically to our independent voters here in South Carolina, who I know must right now be feeling a little bit alienated by the primary process, since, as we're going to get really into the weeds on, primaries drive candidates to the fringes so that they can speak directly to what they consider to be most likely voters, a lot of whom are very passionate single issue voters. And some of the silliness that's going on this week in the State House is indicative of that very specific thing and sort of the crazy politics that are being played here in the primary process. So a couple of things I like to do in each weekly podcast. The first thing that I want to do is talk a little bit about what I've been doing and where I've been on the campaign. So over the weekend, I got a chance to go to two counties here in South Carolina. I went to Lexington County. I got to go out to Batesburg, Leesville, specifically Leesville, for the Poultry Festival, South Carolina Poultry Festival. I got a great post on that on my Instagram. You can see that I got to actually meet Miss Teen Poultry Festival, which was really fun, and take a picture with her. I also got to talk to some vendors, one of whom is building a mermaid business, if you can believe that, which was really super cool. So I got to spend a little time talking about them, about the mermaid business. They actually had a tank on site and a live mermaid in the tank. So we had a whole conversation about how long they can hold their breath so that they can swim. I mean, of course, they're real mermaids. Real mermaids can breathe underwater, these kinds of things, right? But as actresses, they have to teach themselves how to be able to breathe underwater. It's fantastic. It's really exciting to see entrepreneurship in these kinds of spaces. And I asked them if they were hanging out at Renaissance festivals, and they said, yes, that's one of their biggest draws, is to go to Renaissance festivals. They need a lot of people, and they're building a much bigger tank because one of the mermaids is actually an industrial engineer. She's built the first tank and she's going to build a second one so that they can put multiple mermaids, I would guess, in the tank and actually be able to swim around. Anyway, it's amazing. A mermaid business. I ran across them at the Poultry Festival in Leesville. Also got a chance to spend a little bit of time at a bar called Homeland Craft Beer and Wine, which is owned by lovely Rosemary and Dawn. But we were introduced to a listener from 100.7 The Point, Troy, who was bartending there for the weekend and was really excited to get to be reunited with Troy. I've talked to him on the phone sometimes on the radio station, but I hadn't actually met him in person. So they're having a big event August 8th. We plan to get back to Leesville August 8th to be part of that event. So overall, a great time had in Leesville. We ended up at a car show on Saturday as well, which is really fun. It helped to my two folks that went with me on my campaign were, of course, Casey Crow, who has been accompanying me on a lot of my trips, and my husband, Charlie, who's the best campaign caddy I know. He went out there as well. And for them, the car show was really for them. So we wandered around the car show. I didn't know what the heck I was looking at, but I did see a really cool Jeep and had a good little Jeep conversation, which was fun. Also, the Green Goblin was out there too. And I missed the Facebook message from the Green Goblin's owner who said, hey, come by and see us at the car show. I'm really sorry I missed you guys, but certainly let me know when you're going to be out there again. And the best way to get in touch with me is actually through my website and through my email address. I'll put the website up here right now so you guys can see that. It's a little bit harder for me to read those Facebook messages. I just am not as diligent about Facebook Messenger as I should be. So if you want to get in touch with me, that's the best way to do it, is to use my email address or send me a DM on Instagram. I see those a lot more frequently than I do the Facebook messages. Okay, so that was over the weekend. Oh, the other thing I did, I went to Barnwell. If you've not been out to Barnwell County or to the Sundial Festival, see my poster from the Sundial Festival, this was a lot of fun. It turns out the Barnwell County Courthouse has a gigantic sundial in front of it, and there's some history attached to it. And so they hold a festival every year that's in celebration of the sundial. And I don't know, most of the people we talked to at the festival itself didn't really know anything about the sundial piece of it. But nevertheless, it was fun anyway for everybody to get together. They had live music, they had karaoke, they had a lot of local vendors, they had some inflatables that the kids were sliding down, ice cream, things like that. We also got to have lunch at I think it's called Red Hill, was the place that we had lunch, which was really great. Again, Instagram post, you'll see the pictures from that as well. Spent a little bit of time talking to the sheriff's department, spent a little bit of time talking to the Barnwell County Republican Party. So it was fun. It was a good time to be out in Barnwell. I'd never been there before, so that was a lot of fun to be there too. And that means Barnwell County Check. We're now up to 13 counties of the 46. And so we're moving our way through the state and making good on the promise to go to all 46 counties over the election cycle. All right. The second thing I like to do, other than tell you guys what I've been doing, is to tell you who I think qualifies as the monkeys of the week. Again, not my circus, not my monkeys. So who do I think qualifies the monkeys of the week? We're going to dig a little deeper into this with my guest that's coming on here in just a minute. But I think the monkeys of the week might actually belong to the people who are pushing for redistricting here in South Carolina. And that's, a lot of monkeys, quite frankly. There's a lot of people that are pushing for this redistricting to happen right away. And here's why I think they qualify as monkeys. Because yesterday, when we were at the State House in the actual hearing room in the subcommittee, multiple people got up to speak and nobody spoke in favor of redistricting. Everybody was against it. So this whole public testimony, everybody's against it. And then the subcommittee voted 3-2 to send it with a favorable recommendation to the full committee anyway. So it's a little strange to get through a full hour's worth of negative testimony only to have the committee members think like, yeah, we get it, but we don't care what you say. We're going to do this anyway. And it feels like that's the momentum of this whole process. Yeah, we get it. We don't care. We're going to do it anyway. And like I said, we'll unpack that just a little bit more with my guest. Third thing to do on the weekly live stream is to give a shout out to one of my team members who's doing a kick-ass job. And this week, I'd like to give that shout out to Alexa for building our email list. So we're up to 8,000 people on the email list, which is really awesome. We have been adding them in bits and pieces. And it takes a little bit to make sure that we're not going to be identified as a spammer. So you can't just go and bring your whole list in and send it out to all 8,000 people. You got to slowly build that list a little bit so that you get some credibility and that the internet doesn't reject you in your email. So thank you to Alexa, who's been building that email list for us bit by bit. I'm really grateful to her and her efforts. If you want to volunteer for the campaign, once again, go out to the website, southcarolina.com. There is a volunteer button. If you'll click that for me, I would love to have you guys volunteer for my campaign. Right now, that list is growing, which is great. And all of them are going to receive an email from me here in the next 24 hours or so, because next week after the live stream, we're going to have a volunteer meeting. So mark your calendars for next Wednesday, right around 7:35-ish. As soon as the live stream is over, we're going to jump into a volunteers meeting, bring as many people online as we can to talk about the things that we're going to need help with moving forward. Okay, so those are the three pretty much always elements. You'll get the what I've been up to, you'll get the monkeys of the week, and then you'll get the shout out to one of my volunteers. And then, of course, I want to introduce my guest for tonight. So my guest for tonight, Marcurius Byrd, who is the vice president of the Better Ballot South Carolina initiative, Better Ballot SC. If you've not been to the webpage for Better Ballot SC, we mentioned it last week because Melissa was here talking about this redistricting kerfuffle that was happening last week. And Melissa is one of y'all's Low Country team members, but Marcurius is here in Richland County. It's good to see you, Marcurius. Thanks for joining the live stream.
Thank you for having me. It's good to see you as well.
I always enjoy getting together with the Better Ballot team because I feel like Nicole's got her core group of the usual suspects. And so yesterday she had asked me if I would come and bring a podium. We have the Libertarian Party has these some assembly required kind of lecterns that you can carry around and you can prop up in wherever you want to. I was like, yeah, absolutely. I'll do that. And then she said, we're going to have a press conference. Would you like to speak? I was like, that would be awesome. And then I got there and I started looking, I was watching the video of you guys and I saw you in the room and I saw Chris Hemsel in the room from Veterans for All Voters. He's going to be on in a couple of weeks. I saw our good friend, Sam Gibbons, who's with the 5051 organization that organizes the No Kings rally. He's also a candidate for District 2. He's in the primary for District 2. So so when I see all of you guys there, I was like, wow, it's the usual suspects. I love Nicole's team being part of this and everybody rallying around the Better Ballot SC folks. So share with people that are watching, what is Better Ballot SC, and then a little bit about how you got involved and how long you've been working on their behalf as the vice president.
Okay. So Better Ballot South Carolina is a multi-partisan alliance of people who want to make the ballot in South Carolina better. And the thing we're advocating for mostly at this time is a ranked choice ballot, also known as instant runoff voting here in South Carolina. And we're trying to teach people the value in, cost-saving initiatives that instant runoff voting can bring to so many people. So if you're unfamiliar with ranked choice voting, instead of voting for one candidate on a ballot, you get to rank your options from their top to your least, as many or as little candidates as you want. And what this does is it allows us to, one, get rid of costly runoffs. So like we have a lot of primaries. I think we have 22 primaries right now with 3 or more people on the ballot. And so a lot of those races will end up going into runoff if we don't get a majority of the vote of like 50% plus 1 in those elections. So what that ends up doing is causing people to have to come out to vote a second time after the election, again, usually 2 weeks after. And so what we would do is rank your choices on that first ballot. So if your candidate of choice does not win and gets 50% plus 1 and gets eliminated, you get to your vote transfers to your second choice vote. So this way it allows you to, one, not have to come back and vote again because you already know who you're voting for in the first place. And then secondly, it causes campaigns to campaign differently. And so what you get is less of the extremism and less of the mudslinging and more cooperation and more people talking about the issues and less about how bad this candidate is or this candidate doesn't do this and whatnot. And you get them doing more of the issues because there's value to being somebody's second choice or third choice vote in a election, because that vote, if your candidate does not win, transfers to somebody else, and that allows people to get a consensus vote of people we all can work with and agree with, and basically it allows us to not have as many monkeys in the circus running around as we do at this time.
Thank you so much for bringing it back to the theme of the show. Yeah, the whole purpose, like I said before, of this whole "it's not my circus, not my monkeys" conversation is that the primaries do force candidates to really appeal to those far extremes. But what ranked choice voting would do, and this is what Better Ballot SC is advocating for, is enable the voters to show up at the primary and say, hey, this is my number 1 choice, this is my number 2 choice, this is my number 3 choice. And if your number 1 choice doesn't qualify because they didn't get enough votes, then when it goes into what's called instant runoff, so you don't have to come back and vote again in a runoff. That runoff is the votes transfer over as if the runoff was occurring until somebody finally gets to 50%, 50.1% or whatever it is, right?
Yep.
And so to me, it makes sense because it's cheaper. And, you know, my whole issue is the national debt and the fact that we spend way too much money, government top to bottom, way too much money, which we're going to talk about here when we talk about the redistricting too. My primary objection to this redistricting is how much it's going to cost us. But then the other piece of that is that we have such low voter turnout in primaries anyway, that when we think about the possibility of asking them to come back again for a runoff, it feels like we're wasting just the big turnout that we got. Specifically, this upcoming primary is going to be June 9th. So I see Marcurius. It looks like maybe Marcurius has frozen for me. I'm wondering.
Can you hear me?
There you are. I
Yep.
can hear you. Yes. I just can't see you, but maybe it'll catch up here in just a second. Talk to us a little bit about how you got involved with Better Ballot SC and how long you've been working on the effort.
Gotcha. So in 2020, I was one of the campaign staffers on the presidential. So I got to work in the Democratic primary for Bernie Sanders campaign. And right after Bernie Sanders campaign and for me, my sad loss in the South Carolina primary, went around and turned around and ended up working on the South Carolina Democratic Party's coordinated campaign for Jamie Harrison. And right after the end of that, my old Bernie team at that time was looking for jobs. And at that time, Fair Vote was out here looking for organizers. So at that time, most of my Bernie staff had been in contact with Fair Vote. So they were trying to get the job after the election cycle. And so they told me about it. And I met, I believe it was Monica at the time, and started talking to her about ranked choice voting, because before I was helping out on Bernie's team, I also have helped out on Andrew Yang's team, and one of their things was ranked choice voting. And so we have been talking about this throughout the presidential election cycle. And I really like the idea of having that second choice vote, because like I think for me, looking at the presidential election in the Democratic primary for president and seeing so many people's candidates drop out before we got to South Carolina, and we had early voting at that time, and basically all those votes went to waste. And while I would love to think that they all would have went to Bernie Sanders, but it would have been nice to see where those votes would have went, so those people didn't feel like they voted for nothing because their candidate had dropped out, and that seems like a disservice to us. So I really wanted to kind of like fix that issue, and so that's when I got involved with Fair Vote in the process of building Better Ballot South Carolina. So we started having the organizing meetings and trying to find people, and eventually we ended up getting like a core group. Casey was there, me, I was there, Nicole, Melissa, and we ended up forming Better Ballot South Carolina because at that time we were all trying to solve this issue of ranked choice voting, having more opportunities. Us being the like Bernie Sanders people, we were really for supporting our third party people because that's how we felt as people in the Democratic Party. So we really wanted to give people a voice and a choice. And so that's where I got involved and started working there. So ironically, I think, surprisingly, I think I'm the longest serving or person that's been involved with the group. But because I was also working on campaigns, I could not be like a front person. So like I was here at the beginning, but I was always working on stuff. So I was always kind of like in the background. And so that's why I ended up being like, I'm here to support as vice president. I can give like strategic advice as much as I can, but I'm kind of deep in the party stuff, and I don't want us to get tainted because like I was really up high and I didn't want to get tainted. So like I can be a secondary person. And so I've been with the organization since the foundation, mostly doing a lot of the background stuff, showing people, the political people in Columbia that they need to get in contact to, that so they can get to know the movers and shakers. And yeah, that's kind of how I got started.
Yeah, I remember back in those early days. So 2020 was when I was working through the Libertarian Party for the Joe Jorgensen campaign. And we too were reached out. Monica reached out to me as well. Melissa was part of that. She's with the Libertarian Party with me. And we jumped in and started trying to figure out what is this all about? How are things going to go? And then I got elected to state chair for the Libertarian Party. And so I too, I'm like you, I kind of had to step back and go, well, let me focus on the party and doing the things that we need to do and organizing candidates and things like that. And I'm not as good of a multitasker as Melissa is. She is now our second vice chair for the party, and she has been crushing it on campaigns and still very active with Better Ballot SC as well. I mean, she's just...
Melissa is a godsend. I am so thankful for her and all that she does.
Me too. She is a marvel. She's absolutely a marvel. So really super valuable. She was on my live stream last week. We were talking about what I want to talk to you about now. So let's talk about this redistricting stuff. Those of you who are not aware of what's been happening in South Carolina, our state legislature has taken up the idea of redistricting here at the very end of the legislative session. It's supposed to be over tomorrow. So we have a 2-year legislative session. It was last spring, 2025, and this spring, 2026. And then they're all going to get up for re-election in the fall, and likely, you know, and we'll see some change. But anyway, the new session that starts in January, everything's over. Like everything that doesn't happen by 5 o'clock tomorrow is over. And so they have to start all over in January, except the latest is today that our governor has said that he would call a special session for Friday, at which point he expects the legislature to take up this idea of redistricting. And specifically, they want to redistrict our federal map, where we have 7 House of Representatives on the federal map. And the objections to this, specifically from the Elections Commission, were that we have federal deadlines we have to meet as far as candidate filing deadlines and getting ballots out to potential voters. And we're already receiving ballots back from our overseas military personnel and things like that. Absentee ballots have already come back. So this election is underway. And the idea that we would disrupt the election by redistricting these means that we have to change the ballots for people who've already voted, because they would be aligned in new districts and they would be voting for different House of Representatives candidates. It also means we would open up candidate filing again, and the candidates who've already filed would have to file again. There were fees that were paid for them to file that they would have to, I guess, get refunds and then repay. Like, there's all this craziness that the Elections Commission would have to figure out how to make this work. And so they said they could do it because they're good public servants and they want to do what the legislature tells them to do. But they did make it clear that it was not going to be easy and they would open us up for a lot of complaints and lawsuits. And on the radio this morning with Chris Wooten, who is one of the representatives from Lexington County, Chris Wooten said there's going to be lawsuits regardless. Like he just said that, like, we just know there's going to be lawsuits regardless. So we can't let that be the reason we don't do this. And then the other thing he said, and this is where I want to get your input on it, was that he was talking about Representative Clyburn's district, and the position that he expressed, that Chris Wooten expressed, was that there are individuals in Representative Clyburn's district who are not being represented. And when he said that, I was like, I hear you saying that, but I don't think it's saying what you think you're saying. I think you're saying something anyhow. So I just want to ask you about this, because when we spoke at the press conference yesterday, you said that this redistricting would affect you in the district that you're in when you look at this potential map. And then I want to talk a little bit about how Clyburn's district is currently drawn and what that looks like. So can you share a little bit with people? Assume that the people who are watching don't know anything about this issue.
Yeah. So currently, as a voter, I am a voter in Congressional District 6. Live here in Richland County in the city of Columbia, and Congressman Clyburn is my representative. As a Democratic voter in the state, he is our one and only federal level Democratic representative. So for most of the state of South Carolina, if you are a Democrat, Congressman Clyburn acts as your voice on federal issues. Well, as somebody that is in his district specifically, like I can directly say he represents like my voice. However, for people across the state, in areas such as like Congressional District 3. Congressional District 3 is one of our reddest districts in the state right now. I think yesterday they may have said it's like a plus 23 Republican district. No Democrat is going to get elected there. However, in both of these situations, in Congressional District 6, there are Democrats that live in the district and there are Republicans that live in the district. In Congressional District 3, there are Democrats that live in the district, there are Republicans live in the district. And I believe what Chris Wooten and what many others are saying when they say they're not getting represented in that district is the Republicans in Congressional District 6 don't feel like they can go speak to Clyburn and have him address the issues in a fashion that they would think is appropriate to their needs and desires. Right. Conversely, in Congressional District 3, our Democrats kind of feel the same way about Representative Sherry Biggs, just to kind of like show both sides of the coin that this is a problem for both sides, regardless of the party. However, if you look at the, go ahead.
I was just going to say, let's talk about the party, because you said the party. This is specifically about the national level and about national party power. That's what this is about. It's not about South Carolina. It's not about our General Assembly. It's not about the work that they have to get done by 5 o'clock tomorrow. This is about national level power for the Republican Party and the Democrat Party. I just want to be really clear about that, because we're watching our legislature get derailed about something that is really about national power. It's not necessarily about the representation of South Carolinians. Okay, go ahead.
Yes. Yep. 100%. And like with what they're going through with this basic like power grab that's affecting all of us. It's affecting what we get. It's affecting how our candidates and voters overseas get to express their vote and actually participate in democracy. Because basically at this part, this is not the same type of election interference from previous elections, but still a form of election interference, because people's voices are now being interrupted. And at this point, it looks like ignored, because they're probably going to cancel the votes of the people who have already voted.
Yeah, so that's, that speaks to what our elections commission was talking about yesterday when he was advising them, like, hey, yeah, we can do this. It's physically possible, but we should not do this. And here's why. It's because it will disenfranchise those voters who have already voted, who have already submitted their ballots. They're likely to see that their ballots get thrown out. The other point that I made yesterday was that we have brought in a lot of new voters to South Carolina, and those new voters are all over the state. We've grown. We're the fastest growing state in the nation. We've also aged about 160,000 people into the age 18 so they can now vote as well. Like, we're seeing about 350,000 new voters in South Carolina, and we don't have any idea who these people are or what kind of representation they want. We just don't know because they haven't voted in this state yet. So if we were to make these changes now, we're making changes based on the 2024 election, but it could be vastly different when it happens on the other side of 2026. So I would argue that the prudence is to wait through this election cycle, see what we have, and then think about how do we draw these maps, because there is a tradition of drawing the maps around partisan lines. I mean, the party that's in power is going to draw partisan line districts. That's just kind of how it's always been. I mean, from the beginning of the Chris Himsel said from the very beginning, it's been this way, right?
Yep. And like, I also agree with that. Like, I do believe, redistricting is a thing we can do. And I will give, I'd studied constitutional law back when I was in law school. So I will give them, they have the power to like redraw the lines. I am not a person that's going to argue against that. But I do think we should wait until after the election, because as you said, they're basing this off of elections from 2020, 2022, and like 2024. And our state has grown and changed so much, as you were just saying, from that time period. I don't personally think that it's accurate because we have so many new voters coming in. And
Right.
After 2026, we could say this is what our lines look like, because we have two major statewide races that most people are paying attention to. Your race, which I'm highly excited for, and the governor's race.
Yeah. I mean, so I'm also very highly excited for my race, but even in that case, we were talking before about the ranked choice voting. Part of what ranked choice vote, or what Better Ballot SC is trying to do, is get ranked choice voting specifically into the primaries to prevent runoffs in the primaries. And there is, in my race, multiple candidates in the Democratic primary and multiple candidates in the Republican primary. There's at least 3 candidates on each side, which could result in runoffs in their primary races for my race. Now, look, I'm already on the ballot. So from my perspective, like, that just gives me more lead time to hang out with the voters because they have no idea who's coming out of those 2 primaries. But all that said, that ranked choice voting would make that a faster process for them as well. And that would put us all into the general election a lot sooner and give us a lot more time to directly address each other and distinguish ourselves from each other, which we're not really going to have as much time to do right now if they end up in a runoff in their primary races. So it's a naked power grab. We've talked about this before. Nobody's surprised by that. It feels a little bit like it's right now with Governor McMaster saying he's going to call this special session on Friday so that they can specifically take up this redistricting issue. It feels more politicky than anything we've seen so far. I mean, it is like, even to that extent, it feels very marionette, puppet strings, working on behalf of powers that are not interested in what's best for South Carolina, but are more interested in what's best for their national party. Does that feel accurate?
To me, that feels accurate, especially since the map that we are now proposing to run on, Washington, D.C. decided that was the map, not the voters of South Carolina and our representatives.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm sure we'll have more to talk about. Is there anything I can share with anybody else about Better Ballot SC that's going on that you think that they need to know? How can they get involved? I've got the website up here. They can learn more about it there, but we know that you guys are working at every level trying to get ranked choice voting in things like city council, county council, these races where we often have multiple candidates, and then we end up in runoffs where people don't come, they don't show up, and the low voter turnout is really ruining our representation in those spaces. Is there anything people can do to help?
I guess so. One of our initiatives that we have at Better Ballot right now is we're trying to reach out to the municipal elections, because we're trying to start small, step by step, get people used to the system. So most of our municipal elections across South Carolina are nonpartisan. So this is an ideal way to like start getting people used to the idea of getting a majority consensus vote by using ranked choice voting. Because a lot of our municipalities, like in North Charleston, for example, North Charleston had some elections recently. The candidate that won the most amount of votes only got 33% of the vote to win the election.
Wow.
So that means 67% of the people did not choose that person as their first choice and would have preferred a different option. And we have so many races and elected officials who have come in with that consensus, non-consensus vote, who are pandering to small amounts of people. So we hadn't really talked a lot about like our primary voters as well, but like one of the things we talk about at Better Ballot frequently is we show a video called Majority Rules. It goes through like how ranked choice voting worked in Alaska. And in that movie, it talks about our primary voters. Our primary voters are usually 8% of our population. 8% of our voting population votes in the primaries. And usually, as Casey said earlier, it is the most extreme of our activist one issue voters that are voting and deciding our elections. And, 30 years ago, we had competitive districts where, you had to talk and fight and or not fight, but like, compete in ideas to win votes. Now everything is drawn and gerrymandered so that it's just this political base of power, and those most extreme people are coming out to vote. And with that 8%, like turning in more and more extremism. But with ranked choice voting, where you have to get that consensus vote, you can moderate. I don't want to say moderate. Moderate's the wrong word because, like, you might not want people to go to the middle, but you can grow a consensus of what the people in your district actually want. And that is the beauty of ranked choice voting, is we can find a consensus that a majority of people actually agree with. And so that's what we're looking to do, starting at the municipal levels. And so we have a bill in the State House that will hopefully get reintroduced next session as we're about to end. But you can start talking to your municipalities and your city councils about how can we get ranked choice voting as an option. And like, you don't even have to say we will start the process. We're just wanting people to learn about the process and be like, hey, we are open to this option of having this as one of our electoral options. And so that's one way you can help Better Ballot out, is just talk to your local city council people, town council, county council people about how would our elections work with ranked choice voting. Additionally, we have a monthly meeting, usually the fourth Tuesday of each month. You can sign up at betterbetter.org. If you're in Columbia, South Carolina, we meet at Beer Keller at the Riverfront Park. If you're in Charleston, there's a location up there. And we're trying to get a location to meet in Greenville and other areas across the state. And so if you're willing to be a host for one of those areas and join our statewide Zoom call, we're also looking for support that way as well. Additionally, I will say there will be a rally tomorrow at the State House. And so if you're interested in fighting this redistricting stuff, come out tomorrow. I believe it at 2 p.m. there will be having people come out tomorrow to try to stand up against this redistricting as well. And then lastly, like all good nonprofits, a donation is always needed to help support the efforts that we are doing. So if you can donate $5, $10, or you want to sponsor us with $10,000, we could do with lots of educational program with that work.
Yes, 100%. Always need materials, always need palm cards, always need T-shirts and signs and things like that to be able to take out. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to get to the rally tomorrow. I'm going to be headed to Chiraw for a candidate forum tomorrow with the NAACP. So looking forward to being part of that. But I want to get out there in plenty of time to be able to hang around a little bit and talk to some of the business owners and that sort of thing. So go out there, fight the good fight tomorrow, and hopefully we'll let our voices be heard. There are plenty of people that are dissenting against this thing for a variety of reasons. It's not being opposed to redistricting in general. It's just saying like, hey, right now is not the right time for this. We're already underway as far as the election is concerned. Like, let's get this one taken care of, and then we can take it up next year as needed. So thank you, Marcurius Byrd, for being here.
One more?
Oh yeah.
Add one more thing. So like one more thing, sure. as a solution to all of this, is we could move to proportional ranked choice voting, where everybody gets a proportion of the vote. And so we don't have gerrymandering districts. We have larger districts, and based off of how we vote, as we were talking about earlier, you get a proportion of that vote. And you kind of like rank that out. So like if there are 5 seats and, in a district, and you can have multiple representatives in a district. So like District 1 might have 5 representatives. 3 of them are Republicans, 1 of them's a Libertarian, and 1 of them's a Democrat. And that way everybody would have a voice and a choice to for somebody that represents them in their district.
Look, there's all kinds of ways for us to reform our current system. And as we know, the two parties are currently working the system to their own favor. And a lot of times they're shutting out a lot of the folks that would dissent against this. The biggest challenge for election reform is that the people who are benefiting from the current system are the ones in charge of fixing the system. And so it's really hard. It's an uphill climb to try to find people that are willing to do something about this that are not currently in office. So I would say if you're out there looking to who are you going to elect this year, ask them what they think of ranked choice voting. And if you can find somebody that's running in your district and they would support this, specifically this bill that you guys are working on this term, that's not going to pass this term. Hopefully it'll come back again next time around. Jermaine Johnson, a big sponsor of this bill. Neil Collins, a sponsor of this bill. The idea of the municipalities simply having access to ranked choice voting as an option. It is like, it doesn't even make them do it. It just says they can if they want to. It is like the most benign bill ever, but it would give us a chance to introduce it. So I would suggest that voters out there, if you really want to help advance this cause, talk to the people that you're thinking about electing and ask them if they would be willing to get behind a Better Ballot SC initiative, because this is a group that is really trying to help us slowly but surely fix this really very, very, very broken system. Thank you, Marcurius. I'm always glad to see you. Great job yesterday. Good luck tomorrow out at the State House, and keep fighting the good fight for everybody out there. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you. Thank you, and good luck.
Thank you. All right. So that's been Not My Circus, Not My Monkeys. This week has been crazy pants in the South Carolina General Assembly as they're trying to take on this redistricting conversation. And I know it doesn't really necessarily relate to the federal level as far as my U.S. Senate race, but I just have to tell you, this is more evidence, like we talked about last week, of the machinery that is the Republican Party and the Democratic Party working to secure their power. And as George Orwell told us, when the party is omnipotent, it becomes tyrannical, and it only cares about power. It does not care about you. It does not care about voters, and it certainly doesn't care about fixing broken things. All it wants to do is be in power. So just keep an eye out for that, folks, and be wary of any parties that are doing whatever it is they have to do to win, because if they do whatever they have to do to win, they'll do whatever they have to do to keep on winning. And that's very, very dangerous for our republic. All right, so that's it. We're a little over our 7:30 timeline, but I was grateful to have Marcurius here today. Glad to talk more about Better Ballot SC. Y'all keep an eye out. Things are getting crazy in South Carolina. I will see you next week.